I see this as an opportunity this year because of several things. One is the fact that, well, let's get to the most obvious point, is that the fact that the city council stole term limits. And a lot of people are just disgusted with this on both ends of the spectrum, of the political spectrum. I think that term limits go by another name called elections. But, you know, in a city that has such an entrenched machine, I understand why there was such a call for term limits. And even though I'm not a fan of term limits, the law is the law. And, you know, there were 2 referenda passed that gave a mandate for term limits. I mean, these referenda passed by huge margins. And still, the city council decided that, you know, full steam ahead, the voters be damned. It's even more focused in my campaign, the whole issue of term limits, because of Gail Brewer's, not only Gail Brewer's stance on the term limits issue, which I don't know if she has a stance because she's on both sides, but, and also her high profile in the whole term limits debate, insofar as that she was the one who cynically put before, at the 11th hour, when they were debating whether or not to repeal term limits, she was the one who co-sponsored a bill to have a 3rd referendum to decide whether or not people were sure they voted the right way the first 2 times. And then, of course, I say cynically because she knew that this referendum would never pass, this bill for the referendum would never pass the council. And she also voted to retain term limits. She was on record, and her voting record says that she wants term limits, yet she's voting for a 3rd term. I mean, she's running for a 3rd term. So with that definitely, I think, provides me an opportunity. Also, the fact that the city's finances are just a mess, and it's unsustainable, the course that the city is taking financially. The whole budget process is broken, and the council is just full of hacks who are looking for member items and pork, and they've lost touch with their constituency. They've embarrassed us all with the non-stop scandals, the nonprofits, the whole nonprofit scandal of last year. It was just utterly embarrassing to any fair-minded New Yorker. And, you know, if I had my druthers, we would go back to the days of the Board of Estimate and let the city council name streets and declare public holidays. In fact, that's one of the platforms of my campaign, is to bring back a new Board of Estimate, an upper chamber, to bring a citywide perspective to the budget process. Without getting into policy too much about the Board of Estimate, but it could be something that would have to be proportionally representational, and you could have the borough presidents appoint the members of the Board of Estimate for each borough. David Casadas might decide not to abolish the office. But seriously, this city needs more Republicans and conservatives, or anything but more Democrats on the council. And while the council is a legislative body, it's hard to call it a deliberative body when 94% of the members of the council are from the same party. Even if one considers a Republican candidacy for city council in Manhattan a quixotic quest, one has to agree that at least there should be some real debate during the campaign, which is just all too rare these days. My agenda is simple. Lower taxes, less spending, more personal liberty. Mayor Bloomberg has been fairly responsible when it comes to reining in spending, but he can only do so much when the council insists on spending money that just isn't there. And while he has been good on reining in spending, he hasn't been good on taxes. And anybody who pays property tax in New York City knows that very well. It seems to me that wealthy liberals, and let's face it, Bloomberg is essentially a liberal, it seems to me that they have no qualms about raising taxes because they can afford it. There are taxes, there are taxes and then there are taxes. The city collects billions of dollars in taxes, yet if you want anything from the city government, it always comes with a fee. I always had the impression that taxes were supposed to fund government operation, but talk to anybody who runs a business in New York City and you'll be astounded at how many hidden fees there are. And then also, the personal liberty. The council's just all too willing to go along with some of these silly rules about smoking and eating fried foods and traveling from one end of the city to the other without paying a toll. The most pressing problem is the state of New York City's finances. And the root of the problem is not the diminishing tax base at the moment. That is a system of the soak the rich atmosphere on the city council. It's almost a cliche now, but if you keep sucking the blood of the city's wealthiest, they'll just move, and then you've lost that tax base. If the city could get a handle on spending, raising taxes wouldn't be necessary. And the city's just being crushed by labor costs, extravagant benefits for public employees, unfunded pensions and medical insurance, ridiculous work rules, numerous holidays, generous overtime. It's gone beyond unreasonable. We all know that the fire and police departments are at the tipping point where they're soon going to be paying more in pension costs than they are on payroll. And that's just unsustainable. And other city agencies are not too far behind. Some people will say that this is simply because the pension funds have been decimated by the falling market lately. If the funds were being managed properly and correctly, this would be an assumption factored into the pension program. Payouts are just too high because they are based on contracts negotiated by municipal unions whose membership is so large they can make or break an elected city official. Politicians pander to these unions by giving them what they ask for. Essentially, civil servants get to choose their boss every 4 years. Remember, the pensions also come with medical insurance many times also. A great example of some of the ridiculous work rules. Back when I worked at the Parks Department in college, they had a rule that no paintbrush be wider than 2 inches. And of course, the reason for this is that it takes you longer to paint whatever you're painting with a 2-inch paintbrush. So there's a chance for overtime or, And also, can anybody tell me why tenure, you need to have tenure for grade school teachers? I just don't think that tenure is a topic for collective bargaining. Now, I know that one council member can't make a difference insofar as voting on the council. It will bring a new voice to, especially from the Upper West Side. I mean, this would be a huge thing for a Republican to be elected to the city council from the Upper West Side. And a city council member can use his soapbox to change minds. I can't remember, by the way, I can't remember when there was a tie-breaking vote in the city council. I've watched the Upper West Side go from a borderline crime-ridden area of Manhattan to a neighborhood of strollers and middle and working class families. And I think that their interests are more and more being changed by the fact that it's getting to be impossible to live in New York as a middle class resident. And so that's why I think this year is the year, if any, that I've seen so far, that this campaign can work. And I really thank you all for coming out and helping me. It's really been